Okay, one of the things that we'll have to make sure everybody does is get me a piece of music to work with. So you can bring music into Unity. The format, like it can't just be straight out of Apple Music. It needs to be a what I would call a standard audio format, so an MP3 or a WAV file or an AIF. So I've imported a simple MP3 file, and then all you have to do, and again, just be easy to set up, over here, create a new track. And I chose audio track because I did that. Audio track, boom. Take your clip and just drag it actually right here into the track itself. And then you might want to adjust it to make sure it starts at the right time. And then if you hit spacebar or hit play, then we get music. Cool. For any of these tracks, if you don't want them to function, you can just hit this eyeball button here. So if I hit this, then I don't listen to the music. And I don't think that this isn't set up to scrub. There might be a scrub setting for this. I'm trying to remember if there was a scrub. Preferences, is there audio scrubbing? So you can show the waveform of the audio. Oh, you can allow audio scrubbing. Here it is. So in the same menu here, this little gear where you can set like how you see your frames. You can go to a preferences page. And this is where you can turn on scrubbing. You can also do what's called snap to edge or snap to frame. So if I check snap to edge, I'll show you how this works. So I'll close this. So first of all, this can be nice. It can also drive you crazy. Okay, so that's audio scrubbing. The other thing that you can do is with the snap to edge, if I were to say, select this piece of clip and copy and paste it, and I were to move it here, and once I get close to the edge, see how it snaps, boom, right to the edge. That, again, can be good, can be bad. It can make overlapping a little bit more difficult because then you got to sort of pull it far enough away to the edge. Sometimes that can force you to have an overlap size that you don't like. And it is kind of based on how far you're zoomed in. So if I'm zoomed in closer, then it needs to be closer in order to make the snap happen. So I tend these days to, often I start with a snap on, and then as stuff gets more refined, I turn it off. So I'm going to go back here and for sure turn off audio scrubbing because that is too much for me. All right. Then again, you can turn this on and off for any of these tracks, right? So if I were to turn this track off, it just wouldn't apply any animation from this track to that particular character. Okay, lighting. You can animate your lighting in the same way that we animated the camera and the camera target. And we can animate not only the light sort of position and angle, but we can also animate its information. So let's pick one of these sort of side lights here. So this one here is the side light stage left. Or on this side. We've been moving around a lot. Okay, so in order to animate a light, what we can do is we need to make a track for it. So we'll take this light, drag it over here on the left, and make an animation track. In order to animate it, we go ahead and hit the record button. Right? And then we could do simple things like we could move it up or down. And this is a light that's coming straight across, so the changes are pretty stark if we do that. This light, for example, you might get more interest out of rotating it. So let me take the rotate tool here, and I'm going to just rotate it a little bit. And then I'll move forward and I'll rotate it, down. Okay, that's probably going to be really quick. I am zoomed in quite a bit, though. All right, turn that off. Hit space. All right, but you can see now our elements are starting to come together. All right, so that camera fade maybe happens a little earlier here when we start to see it. I mean, you could do a camera cut into this spot here, right? We could try that. Click play. And that right there is the beauty of this setup, is that you can make these kind of changes just that quickly. Change the timing of your cuts, change the animation of your lighting, right? We could move this keyframe forward and back. So rotating lights is reasonable. You could move a light around, so you could move them up and down. And I'll try to give you maybe a few lights to be able to play with a few different types of lights. So actually, I'll make one here so that you can see. I'm going to go ahead and right-click in Lights, and I'm going to create Light. And I'll just create a regular spotlight. and I'm going to move it up. And it's pointing to the side, so I'm going to rotate it with the rotate tool. So it's pointing straight down. And I'm going to move it up a little bit. It's pretty dim right now. Here are the numbers that indicate its position and its rotation. I'm going to go ahead and type 90 in its rotation, so it's perfectly straight down. And then here are the rest of its settings in terms of how wide the cone is and the radius. And then here's the intensity. So I'm going to take this intensity up quite a bit, like maybe 6,000, right? And I might even take that up. Okay, that's a little bit better. So let's say that I wanted to move this light around a little bit. Maybe I wanted it to show up here, move to the dancer at this spot. Okay. So I'm going to make a track for it. Animation track. And so here is where I want it to be at this point in time. I'm actually going to turn on this, and again, I'm just going to move it a little bit. You have to change it to set the keyframe. So now we got a keyframe in place here. All right, and I'm also going to change the intensity just a slight amount to set a keyframe for it. So it looks for a change for it to record the keyframe. So I'm going to call it 19999. Okay, so now I have a keyframe not only for the position, I also have a keyframe for the intensity. So now what I'm going to do is move this here. And if I wanted to, for example, just key the intensity, I don't really want it to really start fading up until here. I'm going to set the intensity to 0. And it made a keyframe just for that. So now, okay, so that was up by the time that cut took place. So maybe we want that to be a little bit later. We could open up our keyframe area, click and drag on these keyframes, and maybe slide this. I'm holding the shift key there. Click, drag, start moving, hold the shift key, and it happens a little later. So now we see the cut, and then that happens. All right. Cool. You could also animate its color if you wanted to. So I could go back to this keyframe. If you want to snap to a keyframe, I think you hit Control comma or Control period is previous or next. So I'm going to go back to the previous one, select record, go to the light, and I'm going to change the color. Well, we'll leave it like white at the beginning. I'm going to move forward here, Control period to snap to that keyframe, filter, and I'll change it maybe to purple. And then I'm just going to scrub it to see. Yeah, so it kind of starts one color, starts white, you can see right there, and then we get to there. All right, and then come out of record mode, just because sometimes I forget. Right, so if you wanted to make the fade take longer, you could select just the first set of keyframes and move them forward in time, holding shift. So now we get the same fade, the same amount of fade, but it starts earlier. All right. And then let's say you wanted it to pop out on a bump. You could come to here, right? And then you could, how do you do a bump? A bump, you have to set a keyframe. You want this to stay the same and then go out. So what we would do is, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to copy keyframes. You know what? I'm not going to bother with that right now because you guys have enough to take a look at. Okay, so lights can have their own timelines and their own keyframes, along with cameras, along with audio. I don't think we'll keyframe much audio, although you can like fade it up and down using keyframes on there as well. All right, I think that's enough for this video. I'll probably have one more video with some extra things in it that have to do with making extra, maybe multiple dancers. Okay?